The harassment that has been done to the Falcone general has become of great concern to us lately at MRN, and we have decided to address it. With this also has come baseless yet extremely harmful accusations on certain individuals. You should all be warned that we are well intent on building a real institution. We do not consider ourselves a vanguard of the revolution, but we consider ourselves a voice of radical politics, which roots back to real life. We are not arrogant enough to think of ourselves as some sort of vanguard. We do not need to clout chase in order to stay relevant. And MRN is to be safe for teenagers, as is any other public program. But let's be real here. The idea of letting kids learn liberalism, nationalism, and even fascism is tolerated, but socialism isn't. That's very telling. I myself was in the Scouts, and whilst I enjoyed my time there were many individuals who pushed right-wing politics onto me. I'm willing to admit that. All around us is hegemony. All around us is ideology. And when we see this, it's going to influence us. So why don't we try and influence actual positive change in the world? The young will overtake the old. It's inevitable. It's the march of time. I myself am not that much older than Falcone is, and whilst I was her age, me as well as many other of my friends fell down right-wing rabbit holes and watched content from white supremacists like No Bullshit, who I didn't know was a white supremacist at the time. There are many people around us who shield how radical and how horrible they actually are. Some of the people I know never escaped that. I'd certainly prefer when I was my age to get grips with genuinely radical politics and movements, and I'd certainly prefer people watching Hakeem over the paedophile Vosh. Online, there is never going to be a safe space, and I don't want there to ever be a true safe space online. I don't like the stifling of free speech generally, except in certain cases such as hate speech, blah, blah, blah. And part of me likes the fact that it's a form of free expression online, but those who harass young people online are scum, regardless of political or...
This is a recording I did in solidarity for the Falcone Journal after repetitive sabotage attacks against her.
Look at the harassment the Falcone General had to put up with. It reminds me of what I had to deal with when I started MRN. The populace may hate Maoism because it is Maoism which encourages the youth to challenge old ideas. I need to say something. Falcone, you are better than anyone I have ever come across at your age. Even Mason Steiner was not as radical, smart, and sharp as you are. Many fail to be aware. There is no awareness how we have to build the new MRN. It may surprise you to know that deal I have with Falcone is simple. Follow the guidelines, which she does. Mouse Rebel News does not control Mouse Rebel News youth. The young overtake the old. That's Maoism. To the Falcone General, the future belongs to you, comrade.
And this was her reply.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hi. I know it's been a while. My indigenous ass hasn't been posting much, but it's cool. What did you expect? But I want to say thank you, Jason, for the solidarity. And also I wanted to give an important announcement to all of you guys that publicly I am resigning as leader of MRN Youth because of in real life stuff, because I'm busy having to deal with school stuff, exams, and all that shit. So I'm not going to have the time to be able to do that. So I'm handing over the reins to basically Corporal Cat and Comrade Zidane to them. I will just be behind the scenes, just working behind the scenes, but not as leader because I don't have the time to do so. My time is going to be busy focusing on in real life stuff, exams, and finishing school. Right now, I don't have the time to basically run MRN Youth at this moment. So, I thank everyone who supports me and who supported MRN Youth. MRN Youth will be under new leadership. I will still run the channel, and I'll still post the statements. But, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. My indigenous ass can't go anywhere. I'm stuck here. I'm stuck to Turtle Island because it's glue. But, also, the other thing I forgot to mention to my colleagues is also because I had to I'm focusing on transitioning, so there's that. See you guys. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time and with new videos. But for now, red salute, comrades.
The Falcone General has spoken the truth. Time and time again, white people are scared. Whiteness is a supremacist construct. Blackness is a material reality. Mexicans are indigenous, but the Spaniards who call themselves Mexican are European and are hijacking the word Mexican from natives. This is colonialism. The term Latino, Latina, and Hispanic are slapped onto Native Americans.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hi. So finally, this one project I have been waiting to finish has been finished. Now I just had to finish the recording and just give it to you guys. So, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about 5 questions you should never ask a trans person, and I will give you the reasons why. Okay. Question 1. How's the surgery? Oh god, help me, fuck. The reason why you should never ask this question is that it makes us uncomfortable. And what I mean us, like us as the trans community. Or us as basically the trans people you're asking. And we want to talk, makes us uncomfortable, and we want to talk, we do not want to talk about any surgery that has to do with our transition. Basically, we do not want to talk about the surgery that has to do with our surgery that has to do with transitioning at all. Like, literally, for real. Like, none of us want to fucking talk about it at all. Like, it's just uncomfortable and none of your fucking business, but how do you have intercourse? And if you do not know what I mean by intercourse, S-E-X. Okay. The reason why you should never ask this fucking question is, motherfucker, we do not need to talk about what the fuck we do with our partner in our fucking bedroom. And that's a fact. I don't need to tell you what the fuck I do in my bedroom and how I do it. How do you use the restroom? That's question 3. Why you should never ask this is because it's gross to tell you how it comes out of our own fucking bladder. Question 4. Do they keep it in a jar? Okay, here's the answer to this question. No, it's never kept in a jar. Y'all don't know how fucking bottom surgery works. And here's my unscripted part. No, that's not how fucking bottom surgery works. Bottom surgery works is that they literally rearrange the tissues to match the perfect, perfect vagina or perfect penis. That's what they do. It's not like they cut a fucking hole, and there, boom, vagina, you can pee now. Or they just, like, take that, thing they cut off and give it to the person who is transitioning into a male. No, that's not how it works. That is just disgusting and the grossest fucking rumor I have ever seen that wants to demonize trans people. 5. Did you get the bottom surgery? We don't need to tell you if we got it or not. We don't need to tell you. It's none of your fucking business. For real, it's none of your business. The other thing is this, the reason why I made this video in the first place is because literally there's a lot of stereotypes about trans people, and as well as there's a lot of things that people say that makes them want to demonize us. And that's why I need to make it. Most of these questions sound transphobic as fuck and are none of your business. And something you should not be asking. Would you ask this to a cis white male? Any of these questions? Like, how do you have intercourse? How do you use the restroom? Would you ask that question to a cis white man? Or a cis white woman? No, I wouldn't. You would only ask that to a trans person because you feel like you can ask them that because basically that is a stereotype you have, or you're just curious and you just don't fucking know it and you just ask this question because one, you don't know how to phrase it, and the other thing is you want to fucking know. Well, there's a thing called Google and you can look it up. Next, there's a bunch of other trans content creators that you can also watch who basically kind of answer some of these questions. So, thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
1. Everything the Falcone General has said in this video is now MRN policy on the subject of trans people. I now bring you a video put out by Dr. Weisfeld. The timestamp is not accurate. The actual date of his upload was March 15, 2021.
Hi. I felt that the first video that I made, a vlog in effect, on the paper, which is a new section or chapter of the Manual of Revolution being produced by the Jewish Blindus Diaspora Movement, of which I am the chairman of the revolution. The first part dealt with basically an introduction, to the necessity of the topic of social orders. Because we have seen that there is a frozen revolutionary process in the first world countries that have suffered various defeats. And we have also seen during the Second World War the degeneration of the working class consciousness to be taken over by the Nazi program, which called itself National Socialist, of course, in order to secure the support of the proletariat. It was a proletarian movement, which instead of seeking to overthrow the capitalist relations of productions and liberate the workers, offered a better deal, supposedly, to the German working class by pretending that it was going to secure Lebensraum, that is, living space. What does that mean? It means that the German working class was corrupted by the Nazi movement to believe that it had inherent rights above that of any other national culture and above that of the national minorities living within, to be a Christian nation state which sought to take over the lands, expel or exterminate the peoples therein, in order to make plantations, basically, in a feudal system whereby the German working class would become a landed aristocracy or landed peasantry, which had at its disposal the slaves of the Slav nations. That's how they originally got their name. and with the elimination of the Jewish people who were the cause of all the problems, supposedly. That was the program of the National Socialist Movement, which was successful in capturing the fidelity of the German working class, unfortunately, which puts into question the consciousness of the working class itself in the first world countries. So we have to go into a further examination of the problematic being how to achieve socialist revolution in the first world countries. So I have a couple of excerpts here from the paper on cleavage points, social orders and class. And I have some additional remarks that I've codified here, which I will read to you with commentary, of course. Now, where then does that leave us in the Jewish Socialist Bund, which has emerged from the ashes of history to present the program necessary to provide an alternative to the racist nation state in both the USA and in Palestine? It's a bit sensitive, as a topic. I've never really become a Holocaust survivor historian because it's too stressful to deal with the Holocaust and the defeat that it exemplifies. So, nonetheless, we of the Jewish Socialist Bund, together with myself as a second-generation Holocaust survivor and Bundist by origin, by way of my mother, who was a Jewish Bundist in the movement in the Warsaw ghetto, and before that, in the city of Warsaw in Poland, where about 35% of the population was Jewish itself, most of whom were Jewish Bundists, that is, socialists. Now, we have emerged from the ashes of history, contrary to the belief of the Zionists, which consider that the Bund no longer exists, alongside of the Marxists, who believe the same thing, that the Bund no longer exists, and it's no longer relevant except as an historical antidote to the Zionist ideology, but without implementing the actual program of the Bund, which is a contradiction in itself, but that's another topic. That topic being the sectarian Marxist tendencies that refuse to recognize the existence of a Jewish political culture and a Jewish people who are an oppressed nation. However, we're able to form a united front by way of the concept of national cultural autonomy, whereby no one national formation controls any other than itself. This communalist convergence is beyond the political doctrine of liberal electoral politics and beyond the Leninist party mini-state formation that seeks to replace the dictatorship of one class by that of another by means of the party paradigm. It is rather the state that is put into question and is thus undermined by the rejection of the nation state, with the negation of the state itself by and on behalf of civil society. Yes, civil society, which has been referred to by Hegel and by Gramsci, but never sort of, according it, the necessary political significance and independence that it requires. So, I refer to the communalist convergence, which you've probably never heard about before, except if you've read the writings of Dr. Huey P. Newton. Yes, Huey Newton was a PhD who took the study of revolutionary politics seriously, and it's necessary to pursue further studies in this way, in an academic way, in a systematic way, in a professional way, in order to be successful. So he projected communalism as a political methodology based by origin on the Paris Commune, no doubt, but one which is beyond or aside, the ideology of communism, which is so directly linked, with the party mini-state formation, and which prevents the liberation and the independence of civil society. Now, to continue with an excerpt here from the paper, the struggle against Christian supremacism, otherwise called white supremacism, is a struggle against Zionist indoctrination amongst the Jewish people, and is not a struggle against Jewish supremacism per se, since the Zionist state only exists by means of the colonial Occidental impulse, and is not a campaign for Jewish supremacism per se. It is an escapist mechanism subordinate to the Christian supremacist crusade that it operates on behalf. So, like in the past, the Christian crusades have not been successful in occupying and penetrating the Orient, and now a new mechanism has been found. Despite, the occupation of Jerusalem in 1917 by the British occupation under the leadership of General Allenby, who declared the occupation of Jerusalem to be the last crusade, as if it was going to be permanent, it wasn't. It was expelled, by both the Palestinian resistance and by the Zionist militias, which took over in place of the British occupation with the complicity of the British imperial intent, which provided arms and the freedom to operate on behalf of the Zionist militias, which took over the territory on behalf of the Occidental world. That is the First World. The struggle against Zionism is thus the opposition to assimilation in the Christian nation-state paradigm. It is assimilation which is proposed, theorized, as a liberation mechanism by Marxism for the Jewish people as a social order. But, really, examine, the actuality of German political culture, which initially allowed for the assimilation of the Jewish German political culture to a great extent, but which evidently failed. And it should have been known that it was going to be failed, because it was attempted previously, in the Spanish, metropolis of the Spanish Empire, which allowed for a certain degree of Jewish assimilation by way of conversion to Catholicism. And there were many Jewish people who did convert to Catholicism because, they wanted to have, the freedom to assimilate into the higher social orders and into the professional castes in service of the state. But with the regime of the Isabella and Ferdinand in 1492, there was an expulsion of the Jewish and Muslim political cultures and social orders, and those who had converted, the conversos, were the first to be subjected to execution and exile. So, converting to Christianity and Catholicism was no escape mechanism. There was no escape mechanism. So assimilation did not work in that context. It did not work in the German context either. And for Marxism to propose assimilation again as a solution to the oppression of the Jewish social order is, to say the least, unhistorical. To consider that Zionism is an ideology of Jewish supremacism is an act of political anti-Semitism, which places the origins of statism upon the Jewish political culture rather than Occidental imperialism. As a result, the Marxist opposition to Zionism, while late in coming, Marxism supported Zionism to begin with, while late in coming, offers assimilation to the very political culture that inspires the ideology of Zionism itself. It was often said by the Marxists that I have worked with during the 60s and 70s, in particular the Trotskyists and the anarchists, that anti-Semitism would disappear with the social revolution, since the workers would no longer seek to blame the Jewish people as a conspiratorial bourgeoisie when the bourgeoisie was abolished. This thesis was based in the evaluation of the working class as the revolutionary class in the advanced capitalist economies. Now, as an alternative, we have some advanced Marxist political theory, which I would like to congratulate and to adopt. Maoist third worldism is a valid theory, since betting on the first world proletariat is a rather minimalist position. First of all, the proletariat is subject to the bourgeoisie as a willing wage slave that desires, first of all and above all, a job as an individual. While the accumulation of capital is more advanced in capitalism as compared to feudalism, for the worker it represents a loss of security, actually, since the job is not permanent. The means of living are not necessarily provided by the employer by way of wages, since the wage is not adequate. Next, the proletariat, according to classical Marxism, was only the industrial proletariat. The service sector of today is considered to be merely servants and not workers. The people working in the public sector do not count as well in Marxism, classical Marxism, since they do not potentially control the means of production or have the means to stop the means of production in general strike. Nowadays, as well, while previously, let's say, 3,000 workers ran an automobile factory, it is now 500, together with the automated machinery. And robots are not yet considered a working class. Furthermore, the first world workers are bought off, when necessary, with the super-exploitation of imperialism, as in the welfare state, which is now being drained of benefits. To agitate the first world proletariat, it would be necessary to cut off the neo-colonial sources of exploitation, as well as the needed resources. This is why third worldism is absolutely necessary. Notwithstanding the necessity of the third world overthrow of capitalist neo-imperialism to generate the inevitable first world revolutions, it is nonetheless achievable in the advanced capitalist economies by way of the united front of the social orders, which together form a majority of the given population. Consider the communalist convergence of the oppressed nationalities: Black Nation, Mexicas, First Nations, the Arab nations, Jewish people, the lumpen proletariat, the undocumented migrants as a particular genus, collection of peoples. This, together with the social orders of differing dimensions, such as the women's liberation movement, the various sexual liberation movements, the generational freedom culture, the cultural revolutions, etc., form a majority of the population which are quite capable of achieving an advanced socialist revolution in the first world. But this can only be achieved by the method of a united front, a communalist convergence. Now, each social order struggling on its own would not be successful in itself other than achieving a few significant but limited reforms, and which are reforms that are reversible given the counter-revolutionary reaction as exemplified in the case of the last 4 years under the Trump administration. So, any significant, any permanent revolution in the status of the oppressed social orders must necessarily achieve its objective by way of the united front. And this is why the Jewish Bundist diaspora movement is calling upon all the other social orders to unite together with their own program and achieve that which we are all seeking in a particular way, but to do so in a united front manner with a methodology that is capable of achieving that which is necessary and that which each social order is setting out to do for itself. So, the paper itself is a much more systematic academic presentation, which is not something that is to be left aside as a unnecessary burden upon the intellect. Is rather something that is a necessity that is necessary to achieve clarity of thought and precision of movement and action. This has commonly been called praxis, the unity of struggle and theory, and this is what is really necessary. So I call upon you to have a look at the paper, which is now uploaded to my academic site and will be included in the Manual of Revolution, which will also be uploaded to my academic site under the name of Abraham Weisfeld. And I want to encourage, the younger generations of revolutionary activists to maintain their activism, as I have, until this late age of 72 years, when I have struggled on the streets of Montreal during the general student strike, the unlimited general strike of students, which occurred here in Montreal, Quebec, and all of the region of Quebec during the 2012 general strike that achieved its objective of stopping the hike in student tuition fees, so as to permit the working class people and women in particular to gain access to university academic education. So that here in Quebec now we have 20% of the students, comprised of working class students. And in some faculties, even a majority of the students are women. So as compared to Ontario, which has a much higher tuition fee rate, and only 10% of the student population are from the working class. So here the 20% of the working class student population were able to achieve and led, the general strike, which brought down the provincial government of the Liberal Party, which was proposing a tuition fee increase, and they didn't get away with it. And instead, they gave up, called it an election, hoping to achieve a majority government, and they failed to do so. And the centrist Québécois francophone nationalist party called the Parti Québécois was elected instead. And because of the pressure of the social movement, which they correctly recognized had led to their election, in the first day there was a abrogation, that is a cancellation of the tuition fee increase, not bad, and also a cancellation of a law which was meant to arrest all of the people who were demonstrating against the tuition fee increase, which caused the street battles, during which hundreds and hundreds of demonstrators were arrested. And that law number 78, was also cancelled by the newly elected Prime Minister of Quebec, who was the first woman to be elected Prime Minister of Quebec. And there was even in the first day, during her inaugural address, an attempted assassination of her as well by some kind of revolutionary, which was stopped by a technician who put his life on the line and was killed. This is not known because, the English media doesn't like to report anything about Quebec that is favorable. And so the Anglo-English speaking, socialist, revolutionary left, considers that the Québécois liberation movement is represented by the right wing now, the centrist right wing Parti Québécois, which came up, with various measures to cut back on social services and to propose a charter of values which was meant to discriminate against the Muslim population and anybody else who was not a Christian. Even while it maintained, the crucifix, above the speaker's head in the National Assembly. No bigger contradiction can be conceived of, actually. But since then, that party was discredited and lost the next election and produced a even more right-wing nationalist government in the form of the CAQ. So we're looking forward to an alternative which is now exemplified by the Socialist Party, which is called Quebec Solidaire in Quebec. And I'd like to promote a certain sort of alternative image of Quebec for the English-speaking listeners now, so that they will know that there is a revolution happening in Quebec, because the Québécois are a social order, an oppressed nationality within Canada, which was initially occupied by the British military, and which also carried out an expulsion of the Francophone Acadian community in New Brunswick, which were expelled to Louisiana. And that's why New Orleans, has a Francophone, historical tradition, and why, Kerouac, who was a Francophone Québécois living in Northeast United States and who continued to speak French, wrote in a cultural liberation sense. The other Francophone population which was oppressed by the British occupation, and I'm talking about the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who went out and suppressed the rebellion of the Métis, who were the mixed population, a new nation of Francophones and First Nations peoples. That is, French men who were fur trappers who went and got married, with the First Nations women to produce a new nation, and they were oppressed, and their leader was hung, as well as the leaders of the rebellion of 1837 in Quebec, which succeeded for a certain time, and was a rebellion of both the French and the Anglophone Québécois population, which succeeded in various reforms and produced a Charter of Liberties, which was the first such charter of personal liberties here in Quebec, which was later adopted by Canada. But the leaders, well, the bourgeois leaders, they were elected, to become, the Liberal Party leaders and the Liberal Quiet Revolution thereafter. But the revolutionary leaders were also hung by the British occupation of Canada, which is still called the Dominion of Canada, which is still basically a political colony of the United Kingdom of England, and has a Governor General, which is chosen by the, on the recommendation of the Government of Canada, but is nonetheless, affirmed by the Queen of England. Yes, Queen Elizabeth of England is still the Queen of Canada and of Quebec, although she'll never dare set foot in Quebec. And so we are a constitutional monarchy which needs to be abolished. So we look forward to a united front, not only within the United States, not only within Canada, but we seek a united front of liberation in North America itself as a model for other continents as well. This gives rise to the thought and the references that have been made, in previous political revolutionary theories to Pan-Africanism, Pan-Arabism, as in the Nasser sort, not in the Ba'athist reactionary sort, and in China as well. We must also consider the liberation struggles of the Muslim social order there, which is subject to cultural assimilation, but not subject to the genocide, as is the slander propagated by many of the Kuomintang, the KMT, which is found in the various political tendencies these days, which try to malign the successes of the Chinese Revolution, which, in spite of the degeneration under the various bureaucratic castes that have taken over the control of the Communist Party, nonetheless, the Communist Party is still dynamic enough as a revolutionary force, despite its bourgeois members, to put down corruption and actually successfully overcome, the extreme poverty that had existed in China previously due to the British occupation. of previous centuries. And China has successfully overcome this defeat in the past to demonstrate that it is only by socialist revolution in 1949 that China was able to achieve its national liberation, and not by the Popular Front that it sought to achieve under the guidance of Stalin in 1937-38, which led to the defeat of the Communist Party by the massacre propagated by the Kuomintang, the bourgeois nationalist party that was supported by the Stalinist regime in order for its geopolitical interests to forestall the invasion by Japan with the help of the bourgeois nationalists of China, which didn't really work, because the Japanese imperialism was still a threat, and which was only defeated by the Chinese liberation of Manchuria in 1949. So there we have, pretty much a worldview, which I didn't expect to get into, but it really fits. United Front is the methodology, which is a revolutionary methodology, and which has a political program which can best now be described by the term communalist convergence. And we invite, all the social orders to formulate their own political program and add it into the communalist convergence. It is not for any other political source. No political party can tell any social order what its political program should be. This is an autonomous dynamic which should be respected by all. And each social order determines its program for itself. That is what is termed national cultural autonomy, which is a cultural, in a political sense, a national political autonomy as well. And in certain cases, this is, should also mean territorial autonomy, as in...
Dr. Weisfeld and my other cadres have made some errors, so I'm here to have a struggle session and correct them. Quebec is a settler country which can be compared to Appalachia, those also called rednecks. White scapegoats, rednecks, co-opt themselves into whiteness by confusing these terms. Both Quebec and rednecks are a culture, not a nation. That is our position. Dr. Weisfeld is also wrong about China. Calling it a revisionist country is an understatement. It is a capitalist, imperialist nation. Period. If you need info, contact me or the Stone Soviet, also known as Lumpen Third Worldist. We are around. Dr. Weisfeld has not paid attention to the fact that MLM theory and consequently multipolar Maoism, also known as Third Worldism, rejects any notion that China is socialist. The Stone Soviet, aka Lumpen Third Worldist, is the line holder of MRN. Dr. Weisfeld has no place saying China is socialist, even if he calls it revisionist. America is bad for Islam, but China is also bad for Islam in its dealings with Israel, being its largest exporter. And the Uyghurs are a horribly persecuted minority. I interacted with a Guantanamo Bay survivor called Mozambique, a British Muslim. He talked about the experience where... He also talks about the persecution in China, which some of that he said with such conviction. I absolutely believe him. Of, children being taken away from their parents, stuff like that. But in 2003, when Guantanamo Bay was getting its tracks, every constituent spying agency or intelligence agency came to Guantanamo Bay. So the Germans came for the German Muslims, the French came for the French Muslims, the English came for the English, and China came for the Uyghurs. And when the Uyghurs were first captured by American hands, they said, Alhamdulillah, that I am in the hands of the Americans and not the Chinese, because the Americans will just kill me. Whereas China will try and take away my faith. Now, I take these words seriously. A man who has been tortured tortured repeatedly and has not capitulated to American media would not lie about the experiences of victims of the war on terror, which is still ongoing. My experience with Mozambique shocked me, and it educated me. ComradeNet is under my protection. Unlike Dr. Weisfeld, he is recognized by street Maoists and street anarchists that seek Bundism, those choice Jewish Maoists and anarchists who have adopted Bundism, and look towards what modern Bundism is, and Net represents modern Bundism. Socialists of colour in the USA and Canada see China as an anti-African force. Dr. Weisfeld, your place is not as dictator. It is a facilitator. You have no right to backtrack, and you are also the old guard of Bundism, and that is an important position. You are the chairman, and I recognise you as the chairman of the revolution, but the chairman is a give-and-take position. Whilst you do get afforded some privileges because of it, it is a position that is only there to facilitate further development. Maxwell Glover is Jason's sidekick, but he is wrong about China, and what he says goes against the line. The line is the opposite of demagoguery, and Jason doesn't want to let his sidekick go. Maxwell Glover is a friend. He has been a key friend to us in certain critical moments in MRN. In fact, he's featured in the up-and-coming Third Worldist documentary. And I call for him not to be expelled, but to take a break and work more with his friends in Arizona, and as well as connect with those choice native friends that he has made. This is a call for education, not for expulsion. And if he doesn't educate himself more, we'll have to reconsider the position. But I want to see Maxwell working with us in future. Thank you.
The term American socialist patriotism has been thrown around a lot as of late by revisionist Kalen Maupin. To him and his followers, there's a possibility to reconcile the U.S. empire with its current and former crimes with socialism. The idea is simply nonsense. There's no possible way one can be patriotic about the greatest empire of evil that has ever existed and liken it to the liberation of humanity from capitalist oppression. America always was and will always be evil. The idea should be denounced as attempted left-wing populism that would only lead to fascism. What's at the core of this ideology? American identity. The ID pole of Americanism. The idea that there is some great virtue to the American people and its empire. Nothing could be further from the truth. What virtue do they speak of? The long history of genocide, land theft, slavery? All these things that make up the basis for what America is, what it was founded upon, what it was supported on by its very people. Both before and after official declaration of statehood. This exceptionalism is based on a perceived right at the expense of others. Both the Black nation and the First Nations population can attest to this. The foundation of America has been a ludicrous belief that the country and its people were given a divine right to exist. Not only that, but to be the example of how others should live. The arrogance of this ideology is astronomical. America has spent centuries forcing themselves on others, exploiting others for their own gain, both domestically and internationally. All of it justified by their perceived superiority and divine mandate. It is time that this reactionary anti-Marxist ideology be destroyed.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hi. So today I'm going to be talking about what is Sakaiism, and this script took me, let's see, a day to make, so please enjoy the whole video, and let me finish with the whole script, and basically give you kind of a definition of what we're talking about. So today we're going to be talking about, Sakaiism. I wanted to talk about it because I think people don't know what it is in the first place, and so I can here explain it to all of you. So let's get started. And also my disclaimer is that reading Settlers or Sakai's books does not make you a Sakaiist, or saying settler or America or that America is a settler colonial state. It does not make you a Sakaiist. So, what is Sakaiism? Sakaiism is a political heresy, not an ideology that anyone identifies with. Before you can make the charge that someone is a Sakaiist, you better know what you're talking about. Sakaiism is a political fetishization of the book Settlers, far away from the actual context. Sakaiism is an anti-cis male, anti-fair-skinned European, anti-religion, which is not the book Settlers. Sakaiists are people who atomize the words of Jay Sakai outside of the 1983 context of his book where it was written, as well as the historical statements his books proclaim. That's kind of the definition of Sakaiism, and I hope this informed all of you on what the fuck is Sakaiist. And also, I get called a Sakaiist sometimes, but is it like reading Settlers does not make you a Sakaiist? And also, I believe Jay Sakai would have spit in these Sakaiist's faces. Also, I only just recommend you to read the book Settlers only for to do this, to basically give an investigation on it, because as you know, as Mao quoted, if you have not investigated a topic, you have no right to speak. It is not harsh to derive you from a right to speak on a topic. If you have not investigated the topic, then you have no right to speak, and you are just talking nonsense. Nonsense has never solved any problems, so you're just speaking nonsense entirely. So, that's all I have to say is for what is Sakaiism, and also thank you all for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to join my Discord server in the link down in the description, and I'll see you all for the next video.
There is no American socialist patriotism. Real patriotic socialism in the US is when the white man applies to the indigenous for citizenship. Caleb Maupin is, of course, cozy towards Alexander Dugin, the first public figure enemy of the real patriotic socialists.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hi. So today I'm going to be talking about anti-Sakaiism. Anti-Sakaiism is just as bad, if not worse, than Sakaiism itself. Basically, we're going to talk about the anti-Sakaiism I've been seeing on the left with these fucking idiots, like these Maupinites. God damn, they're such fucking idiots. I can't stand those fascist pieces of shit. Jesus Christ. Literally, it just makes me want to punch them in the face, but back to the thing. Whereas Sakaiism is about gender warriors and middle-class people of color weaponizing their identities in a type of identity opportunism. In the name of all of this, of the book Settlers, anti-Sakaiism is the opposite extreme. Anti-Sakaiism is reactionary patriotism because it denies the industrial proletariat is not a part of the struggle of the so-called Americas, aka Turtle Island, where basically the proletariat of the first world is black and integrated proles are all lumpen. The lumpen proletariat tends to integrate the quickest with each other. Integration into the middle class assimilation because it turns Jewish Europeans and Irish, Scottish, Armenian, and Italian coming to realize that the US and Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and fascist Israel are all settler colonial projects in the first world, or settler fascist states, as I would say. And also, mind you, I did not write this. This was from basically one of my comrades in Arizona. So, back to this. Colonial projects in the first world, and in its lumpen revolutionaries who truly recognize that whiteness is bourgeois, blackness is proletarian, anti-Sakaiism is just left-wing populism in denial of this lumpen proletarian revolution, which happens to be shared by fourth worlds such as Palestinians, Machika, Native Americans, First Nations, Aboriginal Australians, and the Maori. This is that anti-Sakaiism is against the true first world proletarian, which is black. Anti-Sakaiism is also against the lumpen proletariat, which is very integrated in places like Maricopa County, Arizona, as well as some of the trenches of LA and Chicago. There is no integration of the middle class, only assimilation for the non-whites. You become a colored version of them when non-whites in the middle class try to reconnect to who they are, and to reconnect to who they are. Anti-Sakaists are the first stands in the way of anti-Sakaiism is common in Gonzaloism, Dangism, Hogism, and white labor aristocrats. Anti-Sakaiism is a gaslighting strategy against those who know decolonization is correct. It should be noted that anti-Sakaiism is a mask for transphobia as well. That's what people should know, exactly. And the other thing I also want to inform you all about is that anti-Sakaiism is basically is literally shit, because literally they can't even actually bring a real argument to refute the book Settlers, because they never read the book. And basically now they try to phrase it as anti-immigrant propaganda when it's basically telling you about literally US fucking history and shit like that. So yeah. So, thank you all for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Red salute. Bye-bye.
The issue with social media is that it has killed free information online. The gap between civil society and the state is increasing. For this reason, as well as many others, we oppose electoralism. Changing the system from within is a worn-out tactic which never works.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hi. So today I wanted to make a video that I recently got. From people from my friends in Arizona on what is a gender warrior. So let's get into it. What is a gender warrior? To start off, most gender warriors are middle class white cis males who do a lot of self-appointed gatekeeping for the trans community, usually with cancel culture on their minds. A smaller percentage of gender warriors are white middle-class labor aristocrats who happen to be trans. They will bust down a women's dressing room and scream rape after they intrude. Such gender warriors hate the lumpen trans community because the lumpen trans who tend to be the realists of the anarchists, street anarchists, will fight to the end, and they tend to be the most trusted cadres on the streets who Maoists can trust. Gender warriors are who actually are trans, preying upon cis men who don't fully understand what is trans. They do it in hopes of making people transphobic so they can cry victim. Basically, it's kind of like the whole true scum thing and stuff like that. Or like people like Blair White. Gender warriors, whether it's cis or trans, do not represent the trans community as a whole. Gender warriors are now a big-time feature in radical liberalism. But gender warriors are not exclusive to radical liberalism. Assuming every trans person you meet is a gender warrior is transphobic. Fighting transphobia starts with the humanization of the trans community and its very diversified manifestations. If a gender social construct, then trans exists. That's basically what a gender warrior is, and basically kind of a solution to it. That we need to stop dehumanizing the trans community and start literally seeing them as humans. Basically, trans women are women, trans men are men. That's what we should be saying. That's what we should be doing, giving solidarity to basically the trans community entirely, and supporting their existence. Thank you all for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
The attacks on MRN are mostly due to the goal of MRN, which is to platform those in actual struggle. YouTube is hostile to giving voices to the voiceless, as this runs contrary to the market which YouTube favors.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hi. So I came to debunk this racist myth that indigenous people only make 2% of the population, so how are we supposed to control over land that's owned by that belongs to us and shit like that. And also, here are our flags right here. If you want to go look at them, I'll just leave it there as the thumbnail. But it's just complete bullshit. Because really, a good chunk, at least like a good chunk of us, indigenous people, are put into this colonial term called Latino. And I did a little bit of calculating and estimates. We make up to at least fuck that bullshit. According to the census, the population of indigenous people is 6 million. So I added that, did some calculating of other things with Tainos and all that other stuff in the United States. Calculated, and I got the number of 25 million. I also calculated and subtracted from Hispanic, that colonial term, because we were put into this identity of being a quote-unquote racial group, which is called Hispanic. Hispanic, guys. No. Hispanic is a literal colonial term that y'all need to stop repeating, for real, that we're Hispanics or some stuff like that. No, it's literally, it only is relevant in the United States. Like, please try to come to Central America or Argentina or South America. Please do. And try to call them Latino or Latinx. They're not. Also, I recommend you go check out Mexican Excellence as well, where they even talk more in depth about it, where there's some half-truths to being smaller than we used to be, because yeah, we are smaller than we used to be. We used to be this in in 1492 or 1495. We made our population was 112 million people. That was the population of indigenous people. Our population decreased to literally very small. It went super small as hell, where we only made like we were like super fucking small. Like we like, I can just say, like, in the Caribbean, like, our population was like 300 million. Fuck. I can't forget. 300,000 actually. 300,000 indigenous Taino people in the Caribbean. Then we got decreased to 100 million. That fast. After a couple of years under Columbus's genocidal regime, fascist regime. Then you also see the indigenous genocide, which is not even considered as a genocide, and the colonial aspects and basically our identity being taken away. And I will link to you to a playlist that Jason Unruhe has put as like important stuff where you should all watch it so you guys can learn a thing or two that you are lacking. Like, go to his channel and special playlist where the Machika movement, they talk about the truth of identity history, which I'll put it all into a playlist and I'll link it in the description down below. So the Machika movement does great work talking about this myth and the truth about the identity of our identity. We are not Hispanic. We are not Latino. Stop using that colonial term that was made by America, with the 3 Ks. And if you want to know where that term came from, it came from, let's see, the Young Lords. So, yeah, keep denying settler colonialism, okay? Please do. See how that helps you in any freaking way. And people who hear this myth might be ill-informed, dumb, or just repeating this out of their ass. And they just like repeating this term to basically try to say, oh yeah, you can't run your own independent indigenous nation because your population is small, or blood and soil, ethno-state, yada yada yada. And then I gave the actual population, found the actual population of black people is much bigger. It's literally more than just 10 or 11%. It's like 15%. It's like near to 20% of the population here in the United States. New African people, the population of New African people is much bigger than y'all expected in the United States, so get fucked. The other thing is, like, people, just stop. Our population is 25 to 24 million. That's the population. Like, please learn next time. Or don't be an idiot. At least. Because we make up more of the population than you think. And it's just annoying to keep hearing it every single time. And it's just nerve-wracking. Because it kind of sounds like you're trying to belittle people like me when you repeat that time and time and time again. So, learn something. Because there's no such thing as Hispanic. It's not a racial group. It's not even an ethnicity. It's just a colonial term made by the United States. Indigenous people may get at least like 25 million. Make up, literally the population is 25 million, really. So please learn that. Please take something from this lesson today. And thanks for watching, guys. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
So if the police continue to operate as death squads and you try and film it to raise awareness, YouTube will show hostility and the majority of YouTube communists will be complacent.
Unruhe.